I go back to the business definition of trust. So if you break trust down, the word trust down into elements, what would it be made up of? I feel that trust has two distinct sides. One side is the character side of trust, and the other side is the competence side of trust.
Okay.
And each of these in turn has a couple elements each. So if you look at the character side of trust, within the character side of trust you have integrity and you have intent, and in the competence side of trust you have capabilities and results. Your career is like a living, breathing organism, and building great careers requires nurturing them with strategic guidance. Hi, my name is Savan Kapoor, and I'm India's leading career coach, also known as the Career Guy. Welcome to the Career Headquarters. The most comprehensive career podcast on the internet, where I will bring you groundbreaking insights on everything career related. Whether you're seeking a career abroad or wanting to switch industries, whether you are entry level or a mid-career professional or a senior leader, I have seen it all. As an award-winning CEO of one of the largest and most profitable beverage alcohol companies, my career spanned 3 continents, multiple industries, and provided me with an accelerated roadmap to the very top. So if you want to build an exceptional career and 3x your paycheck, this podcast is for you.
Welcome to today's episode of Career Headquarters, the most comprehensive career podcast. How are you doing, Savan?
I'm doing very well. Excited for this episode. How are you?
Yes, I'm good as well. So we have a big one today,
Yeah.
tackling workplace politics.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm sure everybody faces a little bit of this.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't think the topic requires much explanation.
Tackling workplace politics.
Yes.
I think everybody is going to get
Yes.
it.
Okay, so let's just dive in. So why do workplace politics occur in the first place? Is there a root cause to this?
I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of, trying to identify the patterns in there, see, the first thing to understand is that wherever you work, there are people, personalities, and certain conditions already at play by the time you arrive.
Yes.
And in life, you have the freedom to choose your friendships. You get to choose who you make friends with. People you have some things common with. There is a like-mindedness to those relationships. You get to choose who you associate with in your personal life. But in your professional life, you don't get to choose who you work with. So the first thing to recognize is that there is a pre-existing situation wherever you will go and join for a job. But in terms of these patterns, see, it all goes back to trust, right? If trust is strong in a workplace, then please understand that that will allow people to take certain risks. It will allow people to speak their mind, right? So people can come out with the differences of opinions they may have about a particular subject or a project or whatever the question at hand may be. But if you don't have strong trust, then people will not express themselves clearly or fully. They may, agree with you artificially because that was the least cumbersome thing to do in that particular situation.
Yes.
And some people don't know how to handle it. If they don't like it, they may jump into attacking you. So you need to have trust for true light to be shed on a subject. And if that happens appropriately, then people can work out those differences, take the best thinking from each individual's expression, because nobody has a monopoly over perspective, right? A great idea can come from
Anyway.
So only when people have the opportunity to do that, when they feel safe enough to do that, will they truly commit to the initiative. And unless they commit to the initiative, they will not put in the effort and the work.
Yes.
That also means that you will not be able to hold them accountable. They will avoid the accountability. Um, this will leak out all the time that they didn't fully commit to what was being asked. They are second guessing what they have signed up for. And if you can't hold them accountable, then naturally the results will be nothing to write home about. You will not have strong results if people can't be held accountable for the results. So it all goes back to building a foundation of trust. You want to avoid politics, the team dynamics, the culture has to be such that it proactively weeds out politics, right? And that starts with a foundation of trust. Um, and trust, not very surprisingly, is associated with speed, with how quickly you can get things done. So, environments where the trust is high, in those environments, costs will fall and the speed of getting things done will rise.
Since you're not second guessing.
Because you're not second guessing, because you know that everybody is bringing the right intention, the right mindset to the game. And environments where trust is low, the costs will rise and the speed of execution will fall. I remember I was still working in the US at the time where Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's holding company, bought this organization called McLean Distribution. It's a very large distributor for Walmart. It was, I think, a $20 billion plus acquisition. The entire acquisition was done in 1 month.
Oh, wow.
An acquisition of that size, because the trust of both parties was incredibly high. And then there have been deals that have gone on for years and ultimately not materialized because everybody is coming with their own agenda, and that trust has not been significant. So trust is associated with how quickly you can scale.
All right.
So I think these are some of the things to keep in mind when thinking about why workplace politics, occurs in the first place. It's the ability to understand who is going through what situational pressures, what kind of value systems are at play. And the deeper you can go with this, to be sensitive to this, especially when you come into an organization, you will get a good idea of what kind of politics you will have to handle. Because see, when there is an alignment between your value system and the organization's value system, your ability to handle that politics is going to be superior.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that if your value system and the company's value system is the same, it doesn't mean that there'll be no politics. Wherever there are human beings, there is some politics. Some little bit of Rajniti is going to be there no matter where you go. But if you're coming from the same place in how you look at these episodes and how they are treated, how they are dealt with, then your ability to handle those instances is going to be much superior.
All right. We were talking about trust. So, how can one build trust in the workplace? And does trust differ in personal and professional settings?
Well, I go back to the business definition of trust. So if you break trust down, the word trust down into elements, what would it be made up of? I feel that trust has two distinct sides. One side is the character side of trust, and the other side is the competence side of trust.
Okay.
And each of these in turn has, a couple elements each. So if you look at the character side of trust, within the character side of trust, you have integrity and you have intent. And in the competence side of trust, you have capabilities and results. So integrity means, will you do the right thing even when no one's watching? And you are an honest and straightforward individual. Intent means, what are your motives? What is your agenda? And what is your behavior, right? And when it comes to capabilities, those are your skills, your talents, your personal qualities, your attitude, your experiences. So, for example, I trust my father, but if I need brain surgery, I don't want him doing the job because he doesn't have the capabilities. He's not a neurosurgeon, right? So to drive home the point that that is why we look at capabilities. You should be able to deliver on the outcomes that are expected. It's a part of
Hmm.
trust. And then similarly, looking at results, looking at past results, present results, looking at your past and present results is the best indicator of future results that you will produce. And that is why, in the professional journey, employers look at a resume.
Yes.
They want to get an understanding of what is the very best that they can expect from you. So I think this is what you need to look at, especially in the professional world. I think even in the personal world, you can look at it. So there should not be too much of difference in how you value trust in your personal life versus in your professional life. But this is how you would look at trust. Trust can be broken down into competence and character, character into integrity and intent, and competence into capabilities and results. So the analogy that I use is the analogy of a tree. The integrity is the root system. You need to have a very strong and well planted root system for the tree to be healthy, right? And then intent is like the trunk of the tree. Is it straight or is it crooked, right? And then the capabilities are the branches, right? An individual has many capabilities, like a tree has many branches, and the results are like the leaves, right? The foliage that grows on the tree. Only when you have all of these elements together and healthy will the tree be able to produce fruit. And that fruit is the outcome, the trust that an organization may experience. Because to be able to create that, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, it takes sincerity, it takes the ability to take risk together in relationships and be able to overcome that risk together collectively in those relationships. These things, build trust. But I feel in building trust, you should also always give the other party the benefit of the doubt when you get started, right? Because all of us, we all human beings, we all deserve acceptance, we deserve appreciation, we deserve acknowledgement, we deserve affection. So, when you start out on a good footing, then that is where trust will emerge best. And leaders are people who know how to do this really well. Because they're warm people, they show care, they know that people matter most of all. So that's how I would define trust and suggest that it be built.
All right. You often talk about mining for conflict. But the question is, isn't conflict harmful and detrimental to an organizational setup?
On the surface, it can seem, right? It can seem like conflict.
That's how it seems.
Yeah, would be detrimental because people will be fighting. And in management, there is this big buzzword, conflict resolution.
Yes.
Right? What is this individual's what are their conflict resolution skills? Yes, it can be detrimental. So let's define conflict. So conflict exists on a continuum, right? On one end of the continuum, you have personal attacks. That is where conflict has taken the
worst.
Yeah, it's at a point where it's at its worst. You are attacking the individual. It's no longer about what they said.
Yes.
The fact that they said it is what the problem is. On the other end, you have artificial harmony. People are so afraid to speak up that they'd rather agree with you in that moment for that moment to be over, right? Now, true conflict, sits in the middle of these two, where it's not about attacking someone and it's not about an empty relationship of artificial harmony. It's about being able to throw light on the subject and come up with different thinking, even if it is not agreeable in the setting. That said, please understand, at some points in time, it is absolutely okay to use artificial harmony to your benefit to get to conflict.
Okay.
Sometimes when you are fighting a perspective that is so strong and so closed-minded that it's not going to listen in the moment, you'd rather preserve the relationship by using artificial harmony and come back 3 days later or a week later or a month later or 6 months later to attempt getting them to conflict again. So artificial harmony of the two does have some value. I'm not saying it's, an evil. It does have some value when used appropriately. The idea is eventually to get to true conflict. And leaders know how to mine, how to dig for this conflict, because like we were talking about, nobody has a monopoly over the great idea, right? That can come
Yes.
from anywhere. So people should be able to speak about it without retribution. And that's what great leaders know how to do. Make everyone feel safe enough, let them know that there is not going to be a repercussion on them in the future,
Yes.
right? So that's the only way an organization will be able to use people for their brains and not just for their hands. So on the surface, it can seem that conflict is a really bad thing. But if you go deeper with this concept, conflict can have tremendous value. Some of the most innovative companies are companies that know how to mine for true conflict, because their products or services come out with innovation and the ability to solve the anticipated needs of a consuming tribe.
Hmm.
You know, they do it better, faster, more reliably, more efficiently than the competition, and that requires this ability in the background. This is what people don't see, right? What they experience, you experience the iPhone. You don't experience all of the conflict that went in all of the meetings and all of the teams of the back and forth and the struggle. Which feature should we put in? What should we not put in? How should we design the UI? All of that we don't get to see. We just get to experience the product.
All right. Very interesting. We were talking about leaders. So, what is your definition of true leadership?
My definition of true leadership. I think to answer this, we need to understand, what it is that leaders do. And leaders have this ability of being able to keep their teams, their people, in the right bend of mind, and they know how to culture the environment so that the environment remains conducive for those people to be in that appropriate bend of mind. See, employees are going to stay when they are paid well, because money is probably the single most important variable when it comes to people looking for work. You cannot look at it alone. You cannot look at salary in isolation. There are other factors like the culture of the company and who your boss is going to be. All of that also needs to be considered. But money by itself is the single most important variable, because this is going to drive the economic engine of your life. So employees need to be paid well and fairly for them to stay. They also need to be mentored. And for mentoring, you need to know how to coach, and the employee needs to be coachable. So you need to know how to create the context to offer constructive criticism, and they need to know how to receive constructive criticism. Also, they need to be challenged, because if they are staying in their comfort zone, then things will become very monotonous. It is only when they are getting to grow, because growth will only occur on the boundary of support and challenge. We've talked about this in other episodes as well. So they need to feel challenged. They need to be promoted. They need to know they have a career roadmap, not just a job. It's something that, through their contributions, they are also going to be able to grow in that organization. They need to be involved. That means they must have the opportunity to provide input, even to things where they may not be directly involved with the scope. They need to know that they can state these things and they'll be heard, right? There'll be a justification for if their input is not taken. They need to be appreciated. Everybody deserves that pat on the back, to build that commitment and that drive and that momentum. They need to be valued. They need to be shown that the organization is richer for having them, right? And they need to be on a mission. There needs to be that uniting force, that they are working on something that is bigger than them. Um, they need to be empowered. They should have the ability to take decisions, but they should also be held accountable for the decisions that they take. And that's very closely related to how they will grow also. Because you cannot, as a human being, every decision you take will not be right. You're not going to hit a sixer on every ball. But good decisions are the outcome of experience, and experience is the outcome of taking bad decisions. And they need to be trusted. So, and we were talking about trust earlier. So, I think leaders know how to do these things for the team and how to shape the environment so that this is what people experience in that environment. Um, because leaders are coming from a very strong value system. They are very clear about what they will do and what they will not do. They have to be that role model. And therefore, they abide by a very strong code of ethics. Without this, you cannot become a leader. You cannot lead because of a title. You have to lead in the battlefield. And that means you have to exemplify these values if the team is to listen to you. If you're to have the respect and the authority over the team, then this has to be demonstrated behavior. And leaders are very clear about what is most important in the work environment, what is the highest priority. Uh, I've worked in companies where everything was important. Okay, and when everything is important, truly nothing is important. And I worked in companies where they were very clear about what is the number one priority, because things are going to fight for a professional's time,
Yes.
and you will not be able to give time to everything. So when two very important things are fighting and there's limited time, what will you choose? That will come at the cost of something. And leaders understand that order of priority very well. Uh, Another very important thing is that leaders are not influenced by the circumstances. They don't take the convenient way out, or they don't bend just because uh, it will be the path of least resistance.
Yes.
So they understand that, in doing so, they are setting a precedent. They are setting the tone for others to follow. So they hold themselves by that standard, and they always lead from the front. Um, if you've not been a soldier, you will not make a great general. You need to have an appreciation for the bullets and the bombs and the landmines and the missiles and all of that a soldier is facing, the cold at night, sleeping in a foxhole. You need to have an appreciation for that to be a good leader. And they have a very clear understanding of when to push the team and when to pull back. They know when to hug you and encourage you, and they know when to kick you. They know when to slap you on the back of your hand and hold you accountable. Because leadership at the end of the day, comes from inspiration. It's not about control. It's not about, I'm the leader and you must listen to me. We hear this even in parenting. Why should I do this? The child says, why should I do this? And the parent says, because I told you so. It doesn't work that way. Neither does the child listen, nor will the employee, right? So it's about coming from a place of inspiration. You need to inspire that individual into great performance. For that, you need to delegate some of that authority and power. You need to be able to share it. That's where you demonstrate the trust. And you need to give credit. Because leadership is not about you. I mean, so my definition of leadership is what I've been talking about. And in addition to that, I would say that, leaders understand that they have to develop this skill to identify the right talent and then be able to bring them on board, how to hire them, how to train them so that they are successful on the job, how to groom them so that they remain successful and can accelerate their progress, which helps them grow their careers, and then be able to retain, excellent talent, exceptional talent, because we don't do anything alone. Your ability to get great work out of others is one of the defining characteristics of leadership. There was a statement which said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And worthy outcomes are going to take time. These are not overnight tasks. Building a business that solves big problems and makes a lot of money, this is not something that will happen quickly. Um, these are things that take time. This is not something that will happen in a week or 2 weeks or a month. These are things that will take substantially more time, but they can land up creating solutions that will change the world. Um, Google, for example, it took time for Google's search bar to come to life. It's so simple, but it's made the world so much more an egalitarian place. It's democratized information. So working with others and being able to manage and administer that environment well, that is the essence, the core of leadership.
Okay, very well said. So leadership clearly has an important connection to workplace politics and the overall working environment of an organization, and so does the HR department.
Yes.
So, what can the HR department do to ensure that workplace politics doesn't become a chronic issue in the organization?
Uh, I think, unfortunately, the fault lies with senior management. They are not empowering HR to the degree that they need to empower HR. If you look at a function like sales or finance, it is much more empowered than a function like HR. And this is probably true in a lot of companies. I don't mean to stereotype, this is not every company, but it is true of a lot of companies, the lion's share of companies. Either HR doesn't exist as a function, or if it does, it's a paper pushing function, largely an administrative function. Payroll processing, annual review form printing, stuff like that. So I feel HR can do a few things differently. Not only for averting or avoiding workplace politics, but even in general, HR is facing some serious challenges. We're just now coming out of the third wave. We're sitting in March of 2022, and there is also talks of a fourth wave coming by June. Hong Kong is already hit, Germany is hit at this point, and they're saying that this will probably arrive to Indian shores by June. So we are kind of getting comfortable here in the middle where we think the pandemic is over. It's not over. There is a break. I hope the fourth wave doesn't happen. But looking at the way people are mingling and traveling, it's going to happen. Hopefully, it's not going to have that significant an impact as wave 1 and 2 did. I think it is much more in control and people are better prepared. But these are some of the challenges, that have come to the workplace as well, because you can't physically congregate for work the way we were pre-COVID.
Yes.
So one, I feel HR needs to simplify the performance of appraisal process. What I mean by this is I've seen appraisal processes where they are trying to measure, the blood and hair sample of an employee. I mean, you need to make it simpler. The review process needs to have two things, in my view. One, does this individual follow the core values of the company? And two, do they produce the business results expected? That's it. Don't measure for things like brightness and honesty, because they can't be controlled by knobs. You can't turn up the brightness of an individual. They're not a television set. So I think that's one thing that needs to come. Smart performance management. I think another thing that HR needs to bring into organizations is leadership coaching at the executive level. A lot of people land up in positions where they are responsible for others. They are managers and or leaders, and they don't have the skills to be able to take charge of others. And they are put in this position where they have authority over the careers of other people, but they don't have that, what it takes to be able to manage the careers of others. So I think leadership coaching is something that HR should place a lot of emphasis on and bring into organizations. Um, Getting ready for the virtual, the remote environment, because this is a reality that a lot of companies are now living with. And some companies are okay by it, but a lot of companies that have indulged in virtual and remote work, they're finding that the honeymoon is coming to an end. They're finding that it doesn't work as well as the office environment was working. And now the challenge they are having is bringing their employees back to a 5-day, 6-day work week. Um, See, the opportunity to build relationships is weakened in a virtual environment. All of those corridor conversations, those lunch breaks with your colleagues, those coffee, times, they're not happening. And thereby, the opportunity to heal misunderstandings is also reducing.
Yes.
Thereby, workplace politics is rising, right? So this is one of the unfortunate outcomes of a virtual world. So HR needs to get their act together and figure out how they are going to work past this. Specifically, if you look at how the workplace is changing, HR needs to get ready for a hybrid work model because it's going to stay for a bit. Um, I personally prefer the discipline of an in-office environment. I think it's a far more productive environment. Even though in the office sometimes we need a little bit of personal time to tune out. We're not machines, so they need to get ready for a hybrid work model, and this will differ by company and industry because there are nuances to each industry that need to be taken into account by HR managers or HR departments in those industries. They really need to pay attention to employee burnout and mental health, the resilience of an employee in bouncing back. Please understand, you're dealing with human beings, and these people could be going through things in their personal lives that you have no idea about. So, being kind and proactively looking after people who work for you is a very, very important job on the desk of the HR department. Um, I would say using artificial intelligence in a responsible manner to take people decisions. What we saw in COVID was that competition increased. The number of jobs were few, and the number of people applying for these jobs were many. LinkedIn was reporting almost 350% increase in applications because so many people had been laid off.
Yes.
By the time we got to wave 2, almost 1.5 crore Indians had lost their jobs because businesses had been suffering. So, if you have 400, 500, 600 applications for a position, do you think HR can get through all of the applications? They're not even looking at all of the applications. They might look at the first 20, 25%. So I think AI can play a very strong role there in qualifying from the entire set of what they should look at. And they have to make these decisions responsibly. This is why I say the responsible use of artificial intelligence is going to be critical to HR systems as they go forward. They need to think about micro learning to reskill teams. The world is changing at a rate like we have never seen before. Technology is truly making things very democratic. I've seen a lot of companies, they are going after international talent because of remote work, right? You want a project manager, you're not just limited to the local talent pool. You're a company in the United States, or you're a company in England, or you're a company in New Zealand or Uganda or wherever you may be. You have the opportunity to have a project manager from Uzbekistan, from Japan, from South Africa, from Spain, anywhere can work on your project. So I think this opening up requires people to upskill themselves so that they're competitive now globally. And the learning model itself is changing. It's no longer about degrees and stamps of certification. You go for that very particular niche defined skill that you're going to use in the role that you're going to have. So I think micro learning is going to be a major trend as we move forward in the world of HR. A lot of change management has happened, and for change management to happen effectively, you need to provide stability. And for radical change management to happen, you need to provide radical stability. So the empathy factor needs to grow. HR cannot be just by the books. They have to have the flexibility to take into account transactional level, individual level circumstances of a person, of an employee. So I think that empathy factor needs to go up hugely. They cannot afford to be perceived as a department. They need to be perceived as human, because HR is human resources. So they need to be perceived as human. I think, and they can, in pursuit of that, they can use, data to make the work and the office environment much more humane. So for certain teams, certain hours may represent where productivity is peaking, and certain hours of the day or the night or whatever, whenever they're working, may represent where productivity is falling. In those times, can there be a social gathering place in the office where they can just go shoot the breeze? They want a half an hour to go have a cup of coffee. And I think workplaces are being designed in that manner. I've done so many lighting projects, and I can see a very, very strong shift. So I'm very glad to see that happen. I remember we started working on corporates and office in my lighting business years ago, and it started with Infosys. I'm talking about 25 years ago. And at that point, the way you would design a corporate office would be very different from how you do offices now. Not to say that Infosys is not. Their newest offices are state-of-the-art offices. But we did Barclays, we did Netflix, we did PayPal India, we played a role in Google, in Microsoft, and I can tell you the office is so much more a pleasant and uplifting environment now because of the design, the architecture that has come to offices. So I'm very happy to see that is already starting to happen, because it's something on HR's table. I think they need to use targeted retention strategies, because in a lot of parts of the world, we are seeing this great resignation play out. And the gig economy is taking over. People want to find freedom. They want to sit in a cottage in the Himalayas and be able to work, and then travel to Egypt, go see the pyramids, and from there go to Beijing and experience the Great Wall. They want to have that kind of freedom and that kind of travel and that kind of a life, the nomad, the digital nomad life.
Yes.
So I think some targeted retention strategies are in order. Those are wonderful things to aspire to, but I fear that a lot of people, seduced by the marketing and the charm, are going to jump in too quick. And HR needs to be the function that can counsel them on that. There will come a time where those people will be able to have that kind of freedom, that kind of a life. But if they jump into it preemptively, then they will not know how to make that last, because those skills that needed to be developed to deliver from such environments has not taken shape. That accountability, that vibe has not ingrained itself fully. And when things go wrong, what will the employee do? They'll jump ship. And you jump ship too often, what will happen? Your loyalty and commitment will come into question. And all of this can have a cascading, negative impact on your career. I feel HR has the opportunity to introduce very meaningful metrics when it comes to productivity, when it comes to the entirety of the HR responsibilities. They need to certainly reinvent themselves. Version 2.0 is required now. So I can understand how busy HR must be right now, and the kind of pressure they must be facing.
Yes.
Right now, because the pandemic has really changed the world. I mean, it's changed the world for every function, but I think HR is one of the most gravely affected functions from what the world has been through in the last couple of years.
All right. I think you've given us all the workplace trends for the upcoming years.
Right.
How can one avoid getting sucked into politics in the office at the first place?
That's the $64 billion question.
Yes.
I think important, as we were talking earlier, to recognize that when you join an office, there is an existing environment. There are
Yes.
existing personalities. There is a situation or multiple situations already at play. And politics may be a live and healthy part of those
Mm.
situations, depending on how much the culture tolerates or doesn't tolerate politics. Um, and when you join a company, you are telling them that you are here to play by their rules. You're there to fit in.
Yes.
But please understand, fitting in to a system and agreeing with the system are two very different things. If you don't agree with the system and want a better system, you will still have to fit in first.
Okay.
Because nobody cares how much you know till they realize how much you care. You will first have to win people's hearts. And that is where, if you have information about your ability to fit into that system, even if you don't fully agree with it, that can play a very big role in the right job or the wrong job. So if you want to avoid workplace politics, the more you are taking on a system where you will be able to fit in, the better by design your ability to create success in that system is going to be. That said, I think there are some unwritten rules in every workplace that people need to keep in mind. And I'm going to offer you, there are several, but I'll offer you key 5 unwritten rules that I feel are a huge need of the hour, because so many people's careers have fallen, prey to workplace politics, to all of these power games that get played in people's offices. It's just really unfortunate. So I would say the first thing to keep in mind, unwritten rule number 1, is you are being judged at all times. By default, you are being judged at all times. And it's not just how you look, it is what you say, it's all of that. So, of course, appearance is a part of it. How you dress, how you walk, how you shake hands, have a limp handshake or a firm handshake. Do you smile? It's a reflection of your attitude,
Yes.
right? Is your attitude one that comes with resistance, or is it open? Is it approachable? How you act. Do you get your work done on time? Do you meet the deadlines, or are you going and asking for extensions? Because it's okay to ask for advice or for guidance, but it's not okay to ask for help to do that job. You have been hired to do that job.
Yes.
Right? You can ask for input to do it better. You can ask for advice, but you can't ask for direct contribution into.
Yes.
That's what you've been hired for, right? Never complain. People who complain, it's very clear that they are acting in a manner where they are pulling politics towards them, because they are expressing discontent. And it's not the mark of a leader to complain. They take on the challenge, they take on it by the horns to be able to solve that complexity, that difficulty. So that's something to watch out for. Somebody who is complaining is inviting politics. You have to be assertive, but you also have to know where to volunteer, where not to volunteer, right? But all of this only works if you're superb at your job. The underlying foundation has to be, you want to avoid politics, be really good at what you do. Another unwritten rule is never appear too busy. Be helpful. You are going to be treated politically based on how people perceive you. And if they perceive you as helpful, if they perceive you as somebody who's calm and composed in situations of stress, they will give you opportunities to resolve the politics they may be experiencing with others. And they will not play politics with you. So you could have a big workload, but if you appear stressed, and under pressure because of that workload all of the time, then again, it's not helpful. People know that he's already stressed, or she's already stressed, they are vulnerable, we can play them at this point. But if you're calm and composed, that will not happen. So it's a very deep rule. You have to look at this beyond the surface of what I'm just stating. Um, it's very deeply connected to being perceived as a leader, and how you are perceived is the number one variable in how you will be treated.
Yes.
There are some people you can treat lightly because what they say can be juvenile. They don't make sense always. They'll have this verbal, they say, diarrhea. So they can behave in that manner. Um Leaders are calm and composed. They know how to hold a room, they know how to hold authority, they know how to hold respect, they have a presence. There's only so much room to treat them, because they will treat you with the same respect.
Yes.
um, and your word is your commitment. I feel your commitments are even more important than breathing, because commitment is the underlying force that builds trust. You want to meet with me at some place, and I say I will see you there at 4 p.m. and I'm not there at 4 p.m. and you have no information that I'm not going to be there at 4 p.m. What base do I have left to set up another meeting with you?
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, it's a very small example to show how important your word is. You have to be impeccable with your word. And you have to understand that, it's not just what you say, it's also what you don't say.
Mm.
So, what is not necessary to say, it is very necessary not to say it. Um, Keep your home life at home. That's not for the office. It's not a therapist's couch. It is your professional workplace. Um, at the same time, polite conversation is okay. You want to consult with your supervisor, you have that kind of a relationship where you can talk about certain elements of what's happening on your personal front. And if they are welcoming of it, you want to get guidance on that side, and the relationship allows for it, great. But it's not for your co-workers and your colleagues to turn into another opportunity to talk about over coffee,
Yes.
right? We've all had those, instances where you go out with your co-workers, you have one too many drinks, and you'll end up saying things you don't want to say, and the next morning nobody can look each other in the eye, because everybody's feeling really awkward because they now know something about you that they didn't till last evening. So it's important to have that decorum in how you're perceived. The third unwritten rule I feel is, it's your responsibility to get your work noticed. So E plus R equals O, right? Event plus response equals outcome. And 100% your responsibility. Nobody else is waking up with the goal of helping you become a CEO. Only you are waking up with that goal. So never come to your supervisor or to your colleagues or to your team with just a problem. You can have a problem, but you must also have a solution. One of the strategies that I've used in my career is to every so often submit an unsolicited report on some problem the company is facing that I took the initiative of doing and creating a solution in all by myself. I put thought to it. I'm not saying I finalized the solution and forced it down their throat. That's not the point. The point is, I did something that was beyond my scope, and I did it to a fair degree of depth, and I presented that without being asked. I've been noticing this happening, and here were just some thoughts that I've been mulling over, because you know what? I feel something like this can very quickly impact my area as well. So I just wanted to get your opinion on this. And if it's a well thought out report, let me tell you, it's going to be noticed. You're going to get kudos for an effort like this, because you're going above and beyond. I used to use it as a great seeding strategy for the initiatives I wanted to run in the company. And if you're good at your job, then you have earned the right to meddle into such areas constructively. You're not doing it with bad intention, or you're not going to run it with an ulterior motive. it's being done in a very, very sincere and very, very positive, thought. Um, you have to know what boundaries you're going to keep and what boundaries you're going to break. And that's a delicate balance. But if you're good at your job, you will be forgiven much more often. And I always found it more beneficial to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. A couple times I did get my knuckles rapped, but that's okay. I knew that I had developed the trust and the wherewithal to tolerate that. The relationship could absorb that shock and not be worsened because the work was so good and I was not coming from a bad place. The fourth unwritten rule I'll give you is never stand still. That doesn't mean you want to go to the bathroom and you're being shifty. The idea is that you're one step ahead. The idea there is that please understand that your value is not related with your time or your knowledge or your personality. I'm not saying these things are not important. They are important. You want to build a great career, you will have to put in inordinate amounts of time. You will have to build your base of knowledge. You will have to be the kind of personality that knows how to work well with others. But your value ultimately is related to the results that you deliver. And only when you are one step ahead will you be able to deliver unexpected results and have those breakthrough moments that you require for exceptional careers. And the fifth unwritten rule that I will give you, it's kind of connected to all of these, is you need to have an insane work ethic. Early on in my career, I can tell you, I knew a lot of people who were smarter than me, but I did not know anyone who would work as hard as I did. And there is just no substitute for hard work. And that is a quality that has stayed with me, and I admire it and value it in people I meet, because that's what it takes to build awesomeness in anything. You need to have an insane work ethic. And I remember I was always a hardworking guy. I remember when I moved to New York, I first started renting, and the gentleman who was my landlord, he was a police officer. He's a big guy, 6'4", huge fellow. And he had all of these homes that he owned, which were all rental property. So I would joke with him, what happened, Chris? Did you find the drug money and not give it back? So, he was a very hardworking man, very hard. He'd been on the force for 25 years, and he, on the side, started a garbage collection company.
Okay.
So on the weekends, he would take out the truck, and he got the contract from the local municipality to collect the garbage in his colony, and it worked well. And then he said, you know what, I can hire somebody to drive around and collect the garbage. So he made the investment and bought a second truck. And long story short, very quickly, he had 30 trucks. And his job was such in the police force where he was only working about half a month, because he was doing all of the behind the scenes work. When they are going in for an investigation, you have to wear the wire and all of that, the surveillance from the van that you see in all of the movies. That's the kind of work that he was doing. He was a senior officer, so his talents were best utilized in work like that. He was not in the field beyond that capacity. So he was working only half a month, and he landed up selling this 30 truck company to a big organization that was called by the name of Waste Management. And in that deal, he landed up making some $5-7 million. When he made that kind of money, he was very wise in how he invested it in real estate and would collect the rent. And he was a handy guy. He was handy enough to know if the plumbing is not working, what to do, and if the washer dryer needs repair or the temperature is gone off, what to do. He knew all of that, and he had made friends with people who could help him with that. And that's what he was running. And he would tell me very often, Savan, work hard when your health and your age allows it. Because later on, when you're older, you will not want to work. And it's hard for you to see this because one, it is not immediate. You're not going to be old tomorrow. You're going to be old at some point. So it's very easy for you to ignore what I'm saying. And the other thing he would say is that, believe me, it is going to happen, right? So work hard while you can. It's kind of like saying make hay while the sun shines. And that really impacted me. So it was amazing that I had that opportunity where we had this conversation, and this was one of those conversations that really left a mark on me, and it only further strengthened my resolve to work hard. So that fifth unwritten rule kind of connects all of the others. Is to be really good at your work, you need to have an insane work ethic.
Wow, that was quite a session.
Yeah.
Very insightful. Thank you so much. Savan, after watching this, if a professional wants to engage with you further, what can they do?
I would suggest please come and attend our masterclass, and you will find the link on our Instagram handle. Our Instagram handle is @savan.kapoor, or you can go to our website, which is savankapoor.com.
We'll also put it in the description.
Yes, it'll be in the description. You'll find it in several videos. By the way, I think the link is bit.ly/power-of-your-career.
Yeah.
So you can go there and you can sign up for the masterclass, which will help you understand how we work with working professionals to help them accelerate their career, 3x their paycheck, and build a career roadmap that offers them the professional fulfillment and the financial abundance that they deserve.
All right. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Career Headquarters, the most comprehensive career podcast dedicated to building exceptional careers. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share this with someone you think would benefit from the ideas and the insights shared on this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, Google, Overcast, Castro, or Breaker. If you want to learn more about building an extraordinary career for yourself, I invite you to come attend my free Power Up Your Career live workshop. In this workshop, I will teach you the step-by-step process of landing your dream job in less than 90 days. The link to register is in the description below, and I will see you live at the workshop.